Hello everyone, welcome back to Amazing Bible Stories. Today is Friday, 16th of August, 2013. Our story of the day is going to be about Abimelech the Wicked. You see, Abimelech was the son of Gideon. For those of you who are familiar with Gideon, he was one of the men of God that God chose in the book of Judges to deliver Israel from their enemies. And he had only 300 men fighting against thousands. And all they had in their hands were a torch and a trumpet. It goes to show you the power of God. God doesn't need swords to win battles. God works in mysterious way. So Gideon passes away. He has sons. And then here in chapter 9 of the book of Judges, we're going to see one of his sons named Abimelech, who was so wicked that he conspired to kill his own brother so he would become leader of the Israelites. And how God, through one of the brothers who was spared or who didn't get to face his brother's wrath, prophesies. You see, in this passage, we're going to see how tyrants face their own demise because God is a just God and God says he cannot be mocked. To anyone out there who do evil and wicked things to innocent people, you have to know that everything that you do to others will come back to you, and when you least expect it, and most of the time through the most shameful way that you can face your punishment. Because like Jesus said, you reap what you sow. What you've planted, it's what you're gonna get. You cannot plant an apple expecting oranges. So that's why God advised us as his children, people of faith, to do righteous, to do good things unto others, because what we give, God will reward us because he's a just God. God is loving. But when you do wicked things, he has to reward you because it is a free will. God will allow the devil to treat you, to punish you, because the irony is the devil is the one who influences people to do wicked things. And when you get punished, it's the same guy who tricked you. Kind of ironic, isn't it? While God is trying to tell you, he's like, come to my side, come to my side. So this is going to be an interesting passage. There's a lot of records, and I'm trying not to take too much of your time. I want this video to be at least 10 minutes or less. So I've written some of the verses so you guys can keep track. So basically, if you read, we're looking here in Judges chapter 9, starting in verse 1, all the way to 6. If you read closely, we see Abimelech going to his family is in Shechem. It's a nation there. And he basically got his brothers to support him to be their ruler, basically kind of getting his brothers on his side, and they did. And it states that because in that time, wealth was given by things that you own. It says, his brother, they agree, and each of those brothers, they gave him 60 and 10 pieces of silver out of the house of Baal Bereth. But the thing is, the money that he received, Abimelech turns around, hires evil people, or basically hires mercenaries, and he was hanging out with the wrong crowd, and using those group of people he was hanging out with, goes and kills all of his brothers. And in verse 5 it says, upon one stone. So he literally used a stone to kill his own brothers. But his younger brother, Jotham, and here it says the youngest son of Jerubbaal. Jerubbaal is another name for Gideon. They say because he hid himself. And those same group of people, the people that Abimelech went to, request their support, even at the house of his brothers, he goes over there and they choose him. It says, and made Abimelech king by the plane of the pillar that was in Shechem, the same pillar where Jacob saw the vision that God showed him. So we see someone doing wicked things and goes supposedly in the front of God to be put as king. That's kind of like an insult to God. You go there and kill your own siblings, and then you want to be king over Israel, the people of God. But God is not mocked. So in the same chapter, chapter 9 of Judges, and then in verse 7 to 21, basically we see Jotham, the young brother who didn't get killed. He ran away, but he went out in the mountain of Gerizim, and basically he was speaking up. And he was, instead of speaking, for his own life, he spoke like if he told a story. And let's see, in verse 8, it's talking about, the trees went forth on a time to anoint a king over them, and they said unto the olive tree, reign thou over us. But the olive tree said unto them, should I leave my fatness, wherewith by me they honor God and man, and go to be promoted over the trees? And the tree said to the fig tree, come down and reign over us. But the fig tree said unto them, shall I forsake my sweetness and my good fruit, and go to be promoted over the trees? Then said the trees unto the vine, come down and reign over us. And the vine said unto them, shall I leave my wine, which cheereth God and man? In verse 17, it says, for my father fought for you, and adventured his life for, and deliver you out of the hand of Midian. And ye are risen up against my father's house this day, and have slain his sons, 70 persons, verse 70 people, upon one stone, and have made Abimelech the son of his maidservant king over the men of Shechem, because he is your brother. Basically, he spoke that the people of Shechem, they've risen against the house of Gideon, who saved them from the hands of, the Gentiles, the people of Midian. But it's kind of like an insult. It's like you have this great man of God who saved Israel for, so many years, and you live in peace. And then once he dies, you rise up against his house, kill his children, and put this thug into the house to be ruler over the land. And in verse 20, we see the curse that the young brother is casting onto Abimelech. It says, but if not, let fire come out of Abimelech and devour the men of Shechem at the house of Milo. And let fire come out of the men of Shechem and from the house of Milo and devour Abimelech. Basically, he's prophesying that the two houses, basically Abimelech, who was put by the Shechem house, they will get in conflict. They have elected this killer who they help kill his brothers, but once he's set up as king, they're gonna, have infight, and that's what happens with tyrants. They get, another tyrant gets all the tyrants, thugs, wannabes. They're usually cowards, because as you saw, killing your brothers so you could rule over them after they give you the wealth, you really are cowards. And killing them while they're sleeping, yeah, that's very coward. But in the following verses, starting in verse 22, because I'm trying, to cut this video as short as possible, because you have to read this. That's all I can tell you. You have to read it and go into details. I'm reading, the original, King James version, so he has a lot of old school English. Sometimes you may get confused, like if he talks about three score and the way of numbering numbers. Usually I use the New King James version, because the New King James version usually it keeps the original translation, sometimes some old English words, that you may not understand what it means. For example, the new version will translate them, but there's not really much difference from the original King James version, except that you don't see a lot of thou, ye, those kind of wording, but they're pretty much the same thing. A lot of people, a lot of people have infights about different translation, but I'll say the King James version is the closest. If you talk about the English speaking language, because I learned the Bible, with Louis II, which is the French translation. So you see one person saying, "Oh, the King James version is the best translation," but I'm like, "Well, I spoke another language, so who are you to tell me that your version is better?" It's not to say that they're wrong, by just saying that the Louis II, which is basically the French version of King James, was written at the same time, and they tried to keep the scriptures, as closely to the original translation as possible. So that way, if there are words that cannot be translated, by doing research, you can, fill the missing gaps. That's why most of the words that are italicized basically tells you that, it may or may not be close translation to the original. So back to the story of Abimelech. In verse 22 of chapter 9 in the book of Judges, it's telling us that after Abimelech had reigned over Israel had 3 years, the following verse it says, "Then God sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the men of Shechem, and the men of Shechem dealt treacherously with Abimelech." Uh, this verse, some people will be like, "Oh, so God sent an evil spirit." No, God had to allow an evil spirit to come between them, because God is all good. But when you do wicked things, God has to allow, uh, you know, uh, things to come to pass, because Abimelech has done wicked things, and the prophecy say that the men of Shechem and Abimelech will be fighting each other. So, and what happened was that evil spirit will be the one that will start the fire between the two people, the two groups, and God had to allow it because of the wickedness of Abimelech and those men. And verse 24 concludes the reason why God had to allow that evil spirit to come and cause them to fight. It says that the cruelty done to the 70 sons of Jerubbaal Gideon, 70, and their blood be laid upon Abimelech their brother, which slew them, and upon the men of Shechem, which aided him in the killings of his brother. And basically, the story goes on where, Abimelech fights the men of Shechem, and they're, planting and trying to, basically they're fighting each other. They will plan some hideout to frame Abimelech, and Abimelech will go and destroy some castles. But if we go all the way, we're gonna see the ending of the wicked Abimelech. In verse 50 of Judges 9, we're gonna read all those verses so you can see the result. From verse 50 to 56, it says, "Then went Abimelech to Thebez, and encamped against Thebez, and took it. But there was a strong tower within the city, and thither fled all the men and women, and all they of the city, and shouted to them, and got them up to the top of the tower. And Abimelech came unto the tower, and fought against it, and he went hard unto the door of the tower to burn it with fire." Well, in verse 2, basically a similar thing Abimelech did earlier that we didn't read, where basically the people fled in the city, and they, while they're going up, Abimelech sets the city on fire by closing the door and setting fire, so the people, got stuck inside. They couldn't get out, and the fire and the smoke killed them. So he tried to do the same thing here at this tower. But in verse 53, and a certain woman cast a piece of a millstone upon Abimelech's head, and all to break his skull. Then he called hastily unto the young man his armor bearer, and said unto him, Draw thy sword, and slay me. That man said not of me, a woman slew him. And his young man thrust him through, and he died. And the men of Israel saw that Abimelech was dead, and they departed every man unto his place. Thus God rendered the wickedness of Abimelech, which he did unto his father, in slaying his 70 brethren. And all of the evil of the men of Shechem did God render upon their heads, and upon them came the curse of Jotham his brother, the son of Gideon or Jerubbaal. So here, the irony of this is, this guy, Abimelech, kills his brother with a stone, smashing them in the head, all of them, 70. And the way he dies is a woman takes a millstone that was used, for grinding seeds, kind of like weeds and stuff like that, because it's very big. And she takes it and smashes his head. So while he's dying, in that pain, because your head is smashed, he quickly calls, armor bearer, like the young man, because men of war, they had a lot of armors, and if you want to be fast, you don't have, you had someone to carry for you, like a shield or a sword. So he calls onto this bearer to kill him. He says, "Oh, hurry up, kill me," because people will hear that a woman killed me. Kind of like, hey, save my honor. My so I won't be disgraced. So it's kind of like, the irony is, he thought that by the young man killing him, everybody would, he died from the battle. But guess what? God says all. The Bible was written by men of God who were revealed. And I'm sure that young man probably, he kept his mouth for a while, but, young men talk. They'd be like, so how did Abimelech die? Man, you won't believe this, man. This old lady threw a big rock in his head, and he's like, come on, man, put the knife in my heart, so nobody will call me a sissy or something. I got killed by a woman. Which way of a warrior to die? And they'll be laughing, drinking. So, I mean, the truth will always climb. It's another way to tell you that, lies and deceit, they can cover the truth for so long, but God sees all, and He will reveal it to us. So here, the conclusion of the story of Abimelech the Wicked. I'm calling it the wicked because all the things he did wasn't right in the eyes of God. He was a murderer. He became king by the blood of his brother. How many rulers in this world do we see who become rulers by the blood of not only their brothers, but other human beings? I'm not going to say names, but you know your history. There are a lot of wicked men today, and they're ruling over us, and nobody's saying anything. But I'm here to tell you, anyone who does evil deeds against innocents and against people of God, especially the children of God, after they put you into power or they give you their wealth and blessings, and you curse them by murdering them, the same way you did it to them will come back to you. That is God's justice. The Bible says, everybody will be judged by their works. Well, guess what? You don't have to wait to die to face judgment. You are judged right here on earth. And also, when you rise again in the end time, if you are not saved by the blood of Jesus Christ, you will be judged twice. You'll be judged twice. At the second time you face the wrath of God is eternal death. You will die and never to be awakened again. That will be the reward of all those who do evil things. And the great things from the scriptures, it tells us that someone who is born of God, someone who has God's spirit, God's nature will not allow you to do something that wicked. Jesus said it best. By their fruits you shall know them. You want to know someone who's truly God's child and has God's spirit, you will see it by their actions. Because just like the nature of a lion is to eat deer or antelope, chase meat, you can see a lion turn into a vegetarian or a herbivore because that's not his nature. But you will never see a goat start chewing on chicken or something because in its nature it's a herbivore or a vegetarian. By their fruits you shall know them. So this message to you is, take some time, study the Bible, look up the story of Abimelech. He's mentioned, many places around the Bible, and this passage is really powerful. And you can share with your family and friends. You can listen, read along the Bible, and that's the whole reason why we have this, channel, so we can tell you some amazing stories. Stay tuned for other stories coming up. God bless you. And have a great weekend. It's Friday.